are garlic and onions really that bad to eat? Why should we not eat them on a spiritual path? I've also heard that mushrooms are tamasic. Should we not eat those either? It's an interesting question because if you live in spiritual India for long enough, you keep coming upon more and more rules and regulations. So the very first one, which is of course across the board, is vegetarianism. No alcohol. So in cities that are holy cities, for example, Rishikesh, Haridwar, meat is illegal. Alcohol is illegal. They're holy cities, and so it's just understood and assumed that the consumption of non-vegetarian food, the consumption of alcohol doesn't go with a holy city, so they are not just unusual, but actually illegal. But then, the more time you spend, you start to realize, well, actually there's other things as well, and you'll hear people say things like, we don't eat onions and garlic. We practice full vegetarianism, not even onions and garlic. And so it brings up these interesting questions. So here's the onion and garlic situation. It doesn't actually have anything to do with vegetarianism. Vegetarianism is there for several reasons, which I won't go into too much tonight, simply because it's one of my favorite topics and I talk about it a lot. And so there's already lots of material on that, but just really briefly, eating non-vegetarian food is one of the worst things that you can do for your own spiritual path, for what it does to you internally, in terms of your peace of mind, your love, your joy, your connection to the divine universe, for what it does to you emotionally, in terms of calmness and serenity versus restlessness and anger. But it's also one of the worst things you could do for the planet. So the animal agriculture, the industry of animal agriculture is actually, according to the United Nations, not just, the world according to Sadhviji, but in United Nations statistics, the meat and dairy industry is the single greatest contributor to global warming. More than industry, more than transportation, more than all of the things that most of us think about. It uses way more water than almost anything else we do. So those of us who are conscious about things like turning the taps off when we brush our teeth, well, a couple of liters, 2 to 3 liters are going to go while you brush your teeth. Yes, it's great. Save those 2 or 3 liters. Turn off the tap. But thousands of liters go every time you eat meat. 10,000 liters of water approximately go in one hamburger dinner for a family. So vegetarianism is something that is a crucial part of a spiritual path for our own internal growth, as well as to uphold all of the principles of a spiritual life. Same principles of yoga. So it's not about religion. You enter a yoga class. Should it be a class that teaches you the fullness of yoga, you're going to learn about the yamas and the niyamas. Ahimsa, non-violence. Asteya, non-stealing. So we're not being violent to the world or ourselves. We're not stealing the lives of others, but we're also not stealing resources. So that's all I'm going to say on that, because I could get carried away and do that all night. But that's why you have your regular vegetarianism. Onions and garlic are not harmful to the earth. The production of onions and garlic are not taking water or land or grain away from people who need it. They're actually not even harmful for us. In a lot of medical literature, including, interestingly, Ayurveda, they're actually very, very healthy, particularly garlic. People with all sorts of illnesses and ailments are given garlic as something for them to take. So it's actually very good for the body. The problem comes in with when you are embarking on a spiritual path. As anybody who has tried to meditate or tried to restrain their senses knows, it's difficult. You sit down to meditate, what happens? The mind jumps all over the place. You try to restrain the senses, what happens? Suddenly you're full of lust. You're full of greed, you're full of this, you're full of that. This is the nature of human life. Onions and garlic both tend to have properties that aggravate on a spiritual level aspects of our path. And so it is said that garlic makes you passionate, which interestingly, even in California where I'm from, you would see big advertisements for Valentine's Day dinners. And it was always, very, very garlic-filled, Italian. There's something about garlic that in people's minds and in the gunas. The gunas are the qualities of the body and our interaction with the world in a very physical sense that arouses passion. Onions are said to actually make you dull and lethargic. Now, the practice of not eating garlic and onions, therefore, was instituted in ashrams and spiritual institutions because the whole point is to live a sattvic, not aroused, not dulled, but rather balanced, full of light, peaceful, on every level existence. And so onions and garlic are said to be not part of a sattvic diet. Now, that being said, I've lived in India now almost 22 years, and I've had the great, great blessing of being in the presence of Puja Swamiji and in the presence of many other renowned, enlightened masters. There is no way that somehow suddenly consuming garlic is going to turn these masters passionate and lustful. There is no way that eating onions is going to take that energy, that shakti, and dull it. Compared to the power of their sadhana, the power of that divine connection, to say that somehow garlic or onion could undo it or affect it in any way, it's inconceivable. I mean, there's stories about people giving LSD to Paramahansa Yogananda, to Neem Karoli Baba, and it not even impacting them. So if several high doses of LSD doesn't impact them, garlic and onion doesn't have a chance. So what's happened over the years, as a lot of things tend to do in religious worlds, is things that were practices as suggestions for those of us on the path have become much more letter of the law, Oh, you eat garlic and onions, and you get looks at from people as though you were, consuming a keg of beer sitting right in front of them. I mean, it really has that quality in some people's mind as a wrong thing, which is how the question even comes up. So no, they're not wrong. If you are serious about a practice of meditation, serious about a practice of bringing stillness and balance and lightness to the mind and the body, it's helpful to avoid them. I've done tests on this myself because I'm not vehemently opposed to them. I'm a very, very staunch vegetarian, but I grew up on onions and garlic, and I'm not vehemently opposed to them. And I've done tests where if I'm back in America and I'm at someone's house and they've cooked, it's hard enough to cook for me being a vegan, wanting things organic, so the last thing I want to also say is, oh, and by the way, I also don't. So I've done tests, and what I have found is, on a personal level, no, it doesn't sexually arouse me. No, it doesn't make me more passionate. No, it doesn't dull me. But what it does do is make meditating really early the next morning very difficult. There's a heaviness in the body that when you get up early in the morning and you sit for meditation, and that heavy Italian dinner, or whatever you ate that had lots of garlic and onions the night before, is still in the process of moving through your digestive system, the meditation doesn't have a lightness that it usually does. So on a personal level, that's what I've discovered. And what I would say to you is, let that be a personal choice. For health reasons, if you want to bring them into your diet, bring them into your diet. If that aspect of your spiritual practice is very important to you, stop them. Test it with yourself. See what the impact is. Go off them for a month. See what happens. Eat them again after being off them for a month. See what happens. You're certainly not harming yourself or harming the world through eating them.